welcome back to Recipe for Revenue. This is Leah Messina, and I am excited to be here today with Louis Heinsz of Bevnology and Doug Christoph from Intercontinental Beverage Capital, IBC. We're going to be here today and we're going to talk about functional beverages and the trends in the industry related to that and how this has really become a huge part of the beverage world. Louis and Doug are going to share their insights, share some trends, and tell us what's going on in this space, especially on the ingredient side. And we'll talk a little bit about the finance side as well. So first, Louis, introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Leah. Yes, my name is Louis Heinsz, and I'm the managing member of a company called Bevnology. And Bevnology has been, I guess we formed Bevnology to support entrepreneurs and small companies that want to develop and manufacture beverages primarily that could compete with the big boys in terms of the quality and the capability of those particular drinks. Prior to working for Bevnology, I worked for Coca-Cola for many years across many parts of many different divisions in Europe and Africa, and even did a little bit of work in Asia and in South America. But it's a pleasure to be here, Leah. So I look forward to the discussion.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome. Doug, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Hi. So I'm Doug Christoph. I'm a partner in Intercontinental Beverage Capital. My role basically is to look at the world of beverages, CPG, food service industries, and kind of understand the current insights, the data that's out there, and the trends, right, that are impacting these industries from a consumer, brand, retail, operator perspective, right? And help kind of predict some of the future business needs, right, that are associated with all those, all that data insights and trends. You could say I basically read the tea leaves, so to speak, right, and where the opportunities are, try to see them before they're fully reach the marketplace, consumer marketplace, right? And my background is large global iconic brands similar to Lewis's at the Coca-Cola company and Miller Coors, and smaller emerging ones over the last 8 years or so.
Excellent. And IBC and Bevnology have been working together now for a few years. Can you tell us a little bit about how the two companies have partnered up?
Yeah, thanks, Leah. Sure. IBC has a variety of capabilities, right? We can take products from conception, right, from idea through product formulation, design, et cetera, which is what Louis heads up, right, with Bevnology. And we go all the way through strategic planning, capital advisory, right, if capital is needed. We have a network of capital partners, right, that are interested in beverages, all the way through to retail distributor relationships and execution right in the marketplace. And so Bevnology plays a key role because oftentimes clients come to us at different kind of parts of their life stage. Some of them are fully developed brands that, need a little help, with expansion at retail, for instance. Other products come to us as ideas, right, and they need formulation, product design, and the things that Bevnology and Louis does, right? And so we kind of flex to meet the needs of the specific client.
Right. And Louis, how's that worked out from the Bevnology side, partnering up?
Well, for us, when we ran Bevnology for about 6 or 7 years without the relationship with IBC. And during that period of time, it was really very clear that our clients needed more than just us. We were a good start, and we were able to get them off to a good start. But it became very apparent that they needed more than that. They needed, as Doug said, sometimes they needed capital. Sometimes they just needed somebody to put their arm around them and say, we know what you're doing and where you're trying to go, and we can show you, give you a little advice. And other times they need much more, and they're looking for for someone with, with some gray hair and experience to kind of guide them through some things that they've never seen before. So IBC was a perfect fit. We when I ran into the guys at IBC, we knew kind of immediately this was going to be the relationship that we were looking for. The guys at IBC were the kind of people I wanted to hang around with. They would be the kind of people that you would want to go have a beer with. And so I knew it was going to be a great fit. And of course, it has been a great fit for us.
Yeah, excellent. In our last episode, we talked a lot about how partnerships in the food and beverage space are just critical for brands to grow and to reach that sort of mass appeal. So sounds like you're reinforcing that message.
Definitely.
Yeah. So we're going to talk today. I'm going to shift gears a little because we're going to talk today about functionality in beverages and in the food industry. And it really has been in the beverage world for quite a while, but there's a little bit of a shift going on, it sounds like. Now we're seeing this more in food. Can you guys talk to that?
Yeah. As you point out, right, functionality has been in beverages for quite some time now. And if you simply look back at the energy category, for instance, it's been around for something like 25 years or more. Now the trends are around kombucha, right, for gut health. You've got the Plug as a brand for kidney health. And you've got a lot of other things, right, that are going on within the world of functionality. And it's now moving into the food space. And Japan was probably, I believe it was, on the forefront of functional foods for quite some time. And they're actually the first country to actually create a regulatory system or process, right, for functionality in foods or for functional foods. And I think it's helpful to kind of start with maybe what the definition of functional food is.
Absolutely. Definitely share that.
And if you look at the science, right, the science groups will define it typically as, having disease preventing or health promoting benefits, right, in addition to nutritional value. And, if you think about today's healthy lifestyle, right, it's driving consumers, right, to choose better eating habits, which includes functionality in their food. So it's popping up in menus all over. Louis, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think that it's a question of sort of the evolution of the psychology of the consumer as it pertains to food. If you think about drinks, the company you and I work for, Doug, Coca-Cola, and you think all the way back to the pharmacist Pemberton who designed Coca-Cola, it was the original functional drink. So it goes all the way back to the beginning.
True.
So that, that functionality was laced into the market for many, many years. And consumers got very comfortable with the idea of buying functionality through drinks. So it was a very seamless, smooth transition into greater and greater, more and more nuanced functionality and micro functionality in drinks. With food, it's a little different. Food is thought to be sort of intrinsically functional, and it comes sort of from the goodness of the earth, and it's all very, very specifically natural and it comes from the area in which you actually be buying the food and eating. There's a little bit of a psychological barrier that really honestly has to be overcome by marketing teams to position food for this particular purpose, but it seems to be happening. It seems like the desire for supplementation, for over-indexing on certain kinds of nutrients for very specific health reasons, or lifestyle reasons, or energy and sports and performance reasons. People are overcoming those sort of natural hurdles, and it's starting to take off. It's actually becoming very interesting.
Yeah. And are you seeing it more in the packaged goods side or the restaurant side, or are we seeing it in both?
Doug?
I think you're seeing it in both. I mean, one example is, right, not too long ago, right, consumers, people used to just go to a restaurant, order salmon and go, yeah, I love it, right, tastes good, right, nice dish, healthy for me. But now it's, you know what, I'm eating salmon because it's high and it's a good fatty acid source and it helps
Mm-hmm.
reduce cholesterol, right?
Yeah.
So the mind shift, right, is
Mm-hmm.
is gaining acceleration in the way consumers, right, and diners, right, those people who are
Yeah.
eating out are thinking about what they eat, right, and
Yeah.
how they eat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the
We have a new
restaurants are
restaurant
really,
opening up.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to share that we have a new restaurant opening up here, and seeing the comments online about what people are saying. There's a lot of people excited because getting a new restaurant, is exciting to see. But there was a little bit of a conversation of they somebody wished that the restaurant was a lower carb choice, that there's too many
Yeah.
carbs at this restaurant. And I was thinking about that yesterday about, yeah, that's as we adjust to consumer demands now, thinking about what that menu is and what the health appeal of that food is, and is it helping that market that we're opening these restaurants.
Probably was an Italian restaurant, right?
Yeah, no, it was a noodles and dumpling restaurant. So
Yeah, there you go.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I'm sorry.
well, you know,
I
what's
was just going to
also
add
interesting
something.
is I read an article, some science publication. I'd quote the source if I could remember it, but they were saying that 80% of diseases, chronic diseases, excuse me, are caused by poor eating habits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And right, and the flip side of that was, well, that means that you can solve 80% of the the diseases out there, right, chronic diseases, by eating healthier, eating right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah.
staggering.
It
Yeah.
is. Yeah. Louis, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was thinking back to the question before, and what was coming to mind was that even if packaged goods haven't yet found the brand that can convey this kind of micro functionality and target appropriately, the restaurant environment, especially in big urban areas, is really going to be the place to do it. There's so many communication points to reinforce the whole messaging of the importance of that supplementation for specific purposes. I think restaurants will forge the path, and packaged goods guys
Mm-hmm.
will follow once they've kind of crafted
Interesting.
and figured out how to fine tune that communication.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree, because there's right the health benefits of featuring the food, of the food itself, right, and seeking that out. Then there's the whole component for restaurant operators around promoting that, right? So is it, are you promoting meatless Mondays, plant-based, right,
Mm-hmm.
hamburgers, whatever it is, right? So there's the promotional component plus the menu component. Yeah.
So, do you think that there is a shift in consumers' taste in terms of, when you think of science mixing with food, that doesn't really, at first glance, have a lot of appetite? There's not a lot of appeal to it, but it's maybe that's changing, and people do want the science incorporated into their food in a healthy way.
Well, I can definitely talk to that. The what's happened is that the supply base for ingredients, behind every food and any consumable product, there's this vast network of suppliers that exist in order to keep those products coming, to supply the raw materials for them to be made from. Those suppliers have certainly gotten the message. I can tell you,
Mm-hmm.
they are, and what they're doing is they're finding very, very creative ways. I mean, we have some of those clients ourselves who are making really, really highly nutritious products that align with the sort of macro nutritional plans that people that people have. So they're becoming much more sophisticated. They don't just pull it out of the ground and wash it and throw it into the grocery store in the way that they used to, or spray it full of chemicals so that it lasts, from one coast to the other. They're becoming very sophisticated about the consumer, about their specific needs, about the trends, and they're adapting in big ways in order for them to be able to deliver the kind of foods that people are looking for. It's been a massive change, a massive shift that's really fueling a possibility, not just for great nutrition and great functional nutrition, but also for great taste.
Yeah, that's a good point. Louis, tell us a little bit more about some of the clients that you work with and what you're doing with them.
Oh wow! So we are beverage primarily, not exclusively, but we are beverage primarily. But within the world of beverage, we span everything from sort of deep, dark, rich, sweet sort of dairy products, all the way to the other end of the spectrum in lightly alcoholized seltzers, where it's extremely light and crisp and everything. So within that, if you go down any either produce section, you're going to find beverages. If you go into cereal section, you're going to find beverages. Of course, in the dairy section, you're going to find beverages. And then there's usually 2, 3, or 4 aisles just for beverages, waters and energy drinks and tea drinks and colas and carbonated soft drinks. So that space within grocery is massive. And essentially we're sort of plugged into all of it. We're doing lightly alcohol drinks, and alcoholic drinks are of course becoming more sophisticated as the trends widen themselves down in the alcoholic seltzers. Now they're starting to become more interested in the spirit part of that thing. So the evolution seems to be more focused on the spirit rather than the water. We'll see how long that trend plays out. We're very involved in cannabis and hemp, where we're supporting companies to try to understand how to imagine the regulatory mix of situations across the country in each state. So we're making beverages of all types, teas and of course watery drinks and juices and juice carbonates, all with hemp derived THC. So we're very involved in those kinds of products. We've got medical food projects where there's some kind of a technology that's uniquely positioned for a food delivery rather than a drug delivery. And those companies are interested in delivering them in the most efficient way, which right now is beverages, either in shots or through coffee shots or even in chews like gummies and or soft chews. So we've got so many. I mean, all of these things are underway now in the laboratory in various stages of development.
If I could build on that, Louis, we've talked about this for, I don't know, probably 10 years within IBC. And what I've said is as the boundaries of functionality expand and as they're stretched to provide, maximum impact for the consumer based on whatever that functionality is designed to do, as you stretch that functionality, it's on what we believe is kind of like a direct collision course with pharma, because pharma has all the clinical studies, right? All the data, to really get into the beverage business in a very big way, in a way that almost the traditional beverage industry can't do. And so it's been interesting to kind of watch the evolution of functionality and its kind of expansive nature beyond just the beverage world, right, into functional foods. And it's going to be here for a long trend, right? We're on a long ride on this one.
Yeah. I would if I could build on that just a little bit, the interesting thing about consumer behavior is that, you know, there is a sort of a psychological resistance to taking more medicine. And the pharma guys
Absolutely.
know that, right? And so because they know that, they're always faced with this decision. You know, do we put it in a capsule and overcome that resistance, or do we build an interesting consumer brand that can have lifestyle cues instead of medical health,
Yeah.
perhaps poor health cues,
Right.
that
Right.
make the whole situation of consuming that nutrient much more positive, rather than the sort of the negative view from a pharma point of view.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen it on the shelves. The vitamin brand Ollie, you know, their whole positioning is they take uh, a functional need, like, do you want better hair? Do you want better skin? Do you want better sleep? And every vitamin, they're gummy, you know, chewies. Everyone is geared towards solving that problem. It's not about, you know, okay, let's make sure you get your vitamin D, your vitamin B, etc. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they've done a great job at coming at it from that approach that you're talking
for
about.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about, you know, you both come from the big, you know, big world of Coca-Cola, and, you know, those companies like Coke and Pepsi have really dominated the carbonated soft drink category for decades upon decades. But there's a lot of changes in that space too, a lot of new players in the space. I know that both of you have worked with some of those players. What do you think about how the functionality of those drinks are kind of affecting CSD?
Well, you know, my perspective is that, you know, there's nothing, having worked at you know, the world's biggest, I guess, soft drink company in Coca-Cola, there's nothing like the energy and excitement that comes from sort of dominating the world, you know, from a soft drink
Sure.
point of view. So you can't really compare what we're doing now really to what they're doing. What they have an immediate impact on everything. You know, it's not the sort of company that necessarily follows pop culture. It kind of creates it, and
It
so
creates
it's
it, yeah.
a very unique and interesting you know, company that in a certain way, you know, it doesn't follow trends. It sort of sets them. But in this particular case, functional beverages, even though they were the origin of functional beverages, it's sort of moved beyond them, because the innovation and the change, the evolution is so fast that it's not possible for a large company like that to sort of keep up with that. They have to wait. They have to see what kinds of things sort of settle in and become a more permanent sort of behavior for a consumer before they can participate. So, in a sense, even with their you know, their ventures program that seeks to be on the front edge, they're unable to be on the front edge. So they're depending on companies like us and our clients to chart some kind of a path. Most of those paths will come to a dead end, but some of them will not. And some of them will forge their own space and become big enough for a company like Coca-Cola to participate.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I can add to that, you know, Louis, you'll probably remember this. There was a point in time, whether you were Pepsi or Coke or anybody in the CSD, carbonated soft drink industry, right? There was a point not too long ago where there was concern about kind of downtrends within sparkling or within carbonated, right? And that led to more romancing of the category, the CSD category, with words like sparkling and things like that, right? But then it became more about health and wellness as those consumer trends changed, and around health and wellness and good for you or better for you, right? And then brands pop up within the sparkling category like Spindrift, like Olipop, more recently, right? Any number of those examples that kind of helped reinvigorate, right, the category, even though the category has done well for quite a while now, right? There's these moments of not revitalization, but rejuvenation and acceleration that these new brands are providing now, right, in the current world of functional, better for you carbonated soft drinks.
There's no question. I mean, the position that Pepsi and Coke, the enviable position, I guess, that they occupy is that they sell products that people really love. I mean, they really love them, right? And they may resist, and they can get away with resisting for their own reasons for a period of time. But these things that have this big, giant taste are very, very difficult to resist forever. And I think what the new brands that are revitalizing the category of CSD, what the new brands are showing is that the love for those things don't disappear. They sort of get sidetracked for a while until somebody comes along and says, you can still have that, and you don't have to feel so guilty about it. And the fact that it is a giant taste and it's larger than life and it's really big and it's delicious and effervescent, it has all of the cues. It has everything that people want. It's just a matter of time before somebody finds those magical things and puts it back. And as I said, it'll right now it's Ollie and Poppy and all of these brands, and Coke and Pepsi will be there too to participate. And the cycle and the pendulum will swing again, right? And go away and come back.
What do you think, like a company like Coke on the venture side, when they're looking at what's emerging, what are they looking for in terms of scale or adoption of these up and coming brands?
I think they're looking for some kind of solidity. They're looking for a trend that settles for a minute, that will permit them to jump in and occupy the space and try to build some kind of ubiquity. I mean, that's what a company like that can do is reinforce a trend in a way that other companies can't easily do just by dominating a space. And as soon as they can do that, and it's a legitimate space and it's a legitimate trend, they can occupy it and hold that ground for a long period of time. So they're just looking for settle. A trend that settles and that's stable and firm, and so that they can plant
has staying power.
And I think it's kind of important to say we don't, since we're currently not there, we can really only provide a kind of our opinion, right, on what we're seeing in the marketplace, right? But what we do know and see, right, within the marketplace is. To Louis's point, right, where there looks to be a good opportunity once this product has settled, right? The big players, the Pepsis, the Cokes, the others, right, have such great distribution systems that they'll just take those products, make it, as long as it fits in the portfolio strategy of the brands and company, right, and they'll accelerate that and push it out in the marketplace through their tremendous distribution system, which was one of the big items during COVID, right, was the fact that retailers were counting on the big systems to keep their shelves as full as possible. Right. And that was a big learning coming out of COVID and then there was this big slow period for emerging brands, probably Louis, for a year and a half or so after COVID, before a lot of retailers would even consider taking on new innovation right into their shelves because of the impact that happened during COVID.
Just trying to get back to the baseline of making sure the shelves are stocked and before they take more risks, right?
Yeah.
Well, on the retail side for sure, but in e-commerce, we're seeing a continued, so it seems like a never-ending acceleration in innovation. But it's innovation into products that are more friendly for the e-commerce space. Beverages have
Sure.
struggled because of the weight and the cost of shipping water in liquids. But it hasn't slowed down one bit for things that are suitable for that kind of distribution. And so we're seeing a huge uptick in interest in what used to be, the old sort of Crystal Light in a package or in a tub, seeing
Yeah.
those things now across all functional spaces, either in little stick packs for single serve or in
So many more
packs.
pouches. Everything's in a pouch.
It's really, really, really fits the e-commerce landscape, and,
Yeah.
and it's extremely, I would say, convenient, and it fits with the lifestyles of 20-year-olds and teens and 30-year-olds. They're all carrying around those little Stanley water bottles, that you could
Yeah.
take the top out, put your water in. These powders just fit that beautifully, and so we're seeing a huge migration over to that for everything innovative and new powders.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So there's so much to talk about here. I know, but we have to wrap up. But I wanted to ask one last question, and you've touched upon some of the ideas. But looking forward at what's out there and trending now, what are in the functional space? What do you want to leave us with today?
Ooh, looking
Want to start,
forward.
Louis?
You know, I think that functionality in botanicals, I'm so plugged into specialty suppliers. And I feel like I'm overemphasizing the importance of them, but I don't even know if I could overemphasize them. They are the fuel for innovation, because they take things that have historically been unconsumable because they just taste bad, but they have
Yeah.
this benefit. They just
Right.
they have to unlock this beautiful thing, that this beautiful function, whether it's about increase oxygen capacity of blood, or flexibility in arteries, or cholesterol reducing, whatever the function is that you may be chasing. There's these nutrients out there that can help you get there, but the suppliers are getting so creative in their ability to take away the negatives. For example, I'll give you a great
Yeah.
example. Ashwagandha. Everybody
Yeah.
hears about and knows ashwagandha now, and that most people
Sure.
have tried it just for relaxation, maybe some mental settling if you have a little anxiety or stuff like that. Ashwagandha 5 years ago, well, maybe closer to 7 years ago, was not consumable. It tasted like horse sweat. It was known to have its benefit, but who wants to
Yeah.
drink or eat
But
horse
yeah,
sweat, right? So
tough to
these
digest,
suppliers,
literally.
they're breaking these things down, and they're giving us beautiful things to work with, and that's where I see this continuing.
That's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'll take it in a little bit different direction. We talked a lot about nutrition and functionality in the form of beverages and food, but there's another way that functionality gets impacted, and it's through technology and specific IP, intellectual property. And we have a number of clients that have come to IBC and Bevnology, right, to share their new technologies, and can give you one good example of that. We have a client in Nutri, which basically is a fabulous company that desugars fruit, right, to make fruit juice.
Yeah.
And what most people don't realize is, in your favorite brand of orange juice, name any one of the brands, you know, it might have something like 220 calories and 32 grams of sugar.
Yeah,
Even
a lot
higher.
of sugar.
I've seen high as, you know, maybe 48, 54, right?
Yeah.
And with the current kind of anti-sugar movement, I would call it, that's been in play for quite some time, right? This company, Nutri, literally has an extraction process that pulls the fructose, sugar, fructose, out of the fruit, right, and will create a juice product that comes back almost identical in taste to the original product, but with less than 10 or 15 calories and less than 1 gram of sugar.
Amazing. Yeah, without all the artificial sugars having to be added back in that people don't want in their bodies anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So,
and it's nutrition
in a way that helps address functionality as well, right? Most juice companies, they want to lower their numbers, they'll dilute it with water, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Top 50, right?
Yeah.
Hey. Yeah. So, yeah.
And then just suffer through whatever it tastes like at that point. So.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much to the both of you. It's been a great time to chat about this, and I think it really relevant topics for where we are in the world today with food and beverages. And I appreciate both of your time. So thank you, both Louis and Doug, for your time today.
Thanks for including us. Yeah.
Good to see you,
All
Doug.
right. Thanks.
Pleasure.
Talk to you soon.